Angela, Aaron, can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I can. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I am changing everyone, so you will be a co-presenter. So you will be able to unmute yourself. Everyone should be able to test to see if they can mute and unmute themselves.
Good
Yes.
afternoon. Yep.
Hello.
Is nice, nice.
Well, it works for me.
Thank you, Minister Smith. I hear you.
All righty.
And so I'm with DHCD and Henry Waldron is on as well. He's going to be presenting the code map portion. I just wanted to make sure that he is also able to unmute. Henry, are you
Yes.
able?
And
Yes.
Kimberly Rubens. Hi,
And
Kate.
Kimberly.
Yep, and Kimberly, yep, she is able to as well.
We're very excited to be here today. We love to talk about CodeMap.
Thank you. We're excited to have you. We're just waiting on a few more. We know two that will not be able to join us today. Mr. Kiefer Mitchell will not be able to join us today, and Angela Galliano will not be able to join us today. So we will wait for the others to join.
Did we get clarity on the order of operations or the agenda for this afternoon? Will we be presenting first as part of presenting CodeMap first, or?
Yes, I
set
can put that
agenda?
up in just a second.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So just let me know if you can see that right now. That will be the agenda for today.
Great.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess, yeah, so we'll split my section up with me and
Aaron, who else are we waiting on? Might you know?
We are waiting on Senator Antonio Hayes. We are, hold on one second, let me pull. I'm gonna stop sharing this for a second. everyone. We still have a few more minutes, so Ms. Thompson, we are waiting on Delegate Ambry, James Torrance, as I said, Senator Antonio Hayes, Deputy Mayor Ted Carter.
No, that's fine. I
Yeah,
thought
there's a few more
So
that we're
we're
waiting on.
starting at
We'll give
1.
them a few more minutes.
Okay, all right, so we'll start around, we'll give them a few more minutes and then go from
Yes,
there. All right,
Yep.
thank you, Bill.
no problem.
Now, Aaron, I'm seeing people pop up saying that they're in the waiting room and I'm hitting admit. Should I be doing that? I'm just letting people in. I
You're
have
just
no-
letting people in, but it's okay.
Okay, okay.
So-
I don't-
We do
So
have our new member, so I will let her become a co-host as well. Dr. Jenkins, you will welcome her in just a few.
Hi,
But we'll
so
leave them in the,
just as a reminder, Senator Hayes has hearings. He's going to
Oh,
come
he's
in,
actually-
but he's
yeah,
going to
he's-
jump out.
okay,
he's
I
popping
just
in
spoke
right
with him.
now.
He's going to come in and he's going to jump out.
Yeah, he
thank you
just
for that
popped in right
update.
now.
I see him, he just came in.
They got you double booked today, Senator. Let me see if I can find him.
Yes,
Yeah,
they
he's
do.
on there. He should be,
Yeah,
you should be able to, okay, there
They
you
have
go.
me double booked. I have a couple of hearings, but I'm gonna try to jump on and off as I can.
Sounds good. So, nope, you're fine. But we understand this is a busy time of the year. Busier than normal for you. All year is busy, but we completely understand.
It's okay, Dr. Jenkins.
Well, I mean, I just saw it pop up, so I didn't know if you could see it. I didn't know if I'm the only one seeing that or,
See them all.
okay. All right, so I'm gonna let you get Glenn. All right, I'm not gonna admit anybody
It's
else.
okay. It's okay.
All right.
I just want to make sure that the ones that we need to make co-hosts are co-hosts, so that's fine.
All right, sounds good.
That's fine. And So again, presenters, are you comfortable with sharing your screen? You guys know the steps to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds good. I will share the agenda one more time. And then Dr. Jenkins, you can go in 1 minute.
Okay, so thank you very much, Aaron. Let me go ahead and call us to order. Let me welcome everyone. I hope that everyone into our agenda. So before we get into our agenda and our conversations, let me take a moment. I want to identify and acknowledge Mrs. Jennings. Mrs. Jennings, are you with us? Can you come off of mute if you are with us and say hello to everyone? I thought I saw her come into the weight room because I think I let her in.
You did. Ms. Jennings, you
Hi,
can unmute
sorry.
yourself. Yep.
There you are. All right. Well, listen, I just wanted to acknowledge you and to welcome you to the West North Avenue Authority. So I'll give the floor to you to please introduce yourself, say anything that you would like. But again, it is an honor to have you join us. So thank you.
Absolutely. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joan Dre Jennings. I am the interim executive director for Druid Heights Community Development Corporation. And it's an honor for me to step in the role of Mr. Presley. I know was chosen, and I'm now stepping into his shoes. It's big shoes to fill, but it definitely we're pushing forward here at Druid Heights, and we're just excited about the prospects in this partnership and looking forward to working with the Housing Authority as well. So thank you so much, and thanks for giving me the time to introduce myself. I know most folks here, but some I don't, and so I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you as well.
Great. Thank you. So obviously, for those who don't know, I would encourage you to share information, put it into the chat box if you have the opportunity to, do that. So we have a very good agenda today. We're going to start with calling roll. So let me have Daphne, if you're with us, let me have you call the roll so we can see who's with us and who is not.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone. Ms. Kate Edwards, Acting Deputy Commissioner.
Yes, present.
Present. Acting Deputy Kate Sylvester.
This is Patrick McNair, M.MTA, representing Kate Sylvester, Deputy Director,
Okay, thank
Deputy
you.
Administrator.
Okay, thank you. Director Raven Thompson.
I'm present, representing DDC.
Thank you. Deputy Director Theo Ngongang.
Good
I hope I
afternoon.
pronounced your last name correctly.
You sure did. I'm impressed. Yes,
All right, thank
absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Chris Ryer.
Good afternoon, Chad Hayes, Western District Planner. I'll be representing Director Ryer for the Department of Planning.
Thank you. Delegate Marlon Ampry. Recording in progress.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Ian, the Chief of Staff for Delegate Ampry. He's currently in a committee hearing, so I'll be taking his spot for him here. And we also have Mayor Louise, our colleague in the team.
And your colleague, I'm sorry?
Our colleague, Mayor Louise.
Okay. All right, thanks, Ian. Councilman James Torrance. Dr. Sherry Parks.
I'm here. Hello.
Okay, thank you. Senator Hayes, I know he's here. He may have popped off. I see Ms. Mayo. Good afternoon. Deputy Mayor Ted Carter. Deputy Todd Scott. Minister Glenn Smith.
I am here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I know we have, of course, Ms. Jennings and President Jenkins. Is there anyone whose name I did not call?
Yes, Ted Carter.
Hi, Deputy Mayor Carter. Thank you.
Matthew Fraley.
Mr. Fraley.
Pastor James from Whitestone Baptist Church.
Thank you, Pastor.
Henry Waldron from Baltimore City HCD.
Thank you.
Kimberly Rubens, DHCD.
Thank you.
I'm Elder, Maryland Department of Legislative Services.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Daffy.
Thank you.
All right. So listen, again, for those who may have joined us just a little late, let me again welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. We have three, I think, very dynamic presentations and information that I think is definitely worth us hearing as we continue to have conversations and put strategic steps into place on how we are going to move the authority forward. And so your insight, your input in the conversations that we have each time that we meet are significant. So I encourage folks to ask questions to make sure that we are addressing whatever concerns individuals may have. But today I think that we have some great presentations that are going to build off of what we've been talking about up to this point. So let me yield, and I'm going to ask Kate Edwards. Kate, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So Kate, at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you, and I'll let you move with your presentation. We'll come out of Kate's presentation, see if there are any questions, and then we will continue with our agenda. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you. So today I'm going to give you an overview of the Department of Housing and Community Development for the City of Baltimore. And we're also going to give you an overview of CodeMap, which is one of our key tools that we use on a daily basis that can be really helpful for everybody who's looking at the city for development purposes, for purchasing city-owned property. There's a variety of uses of that tool, and I have Kimberly Rubens and Henry Waldron here from our team to help us go through that code map presentation. And then of course, Kimberly Rumens is also our chief of policy and can step in anytime while I'm doing my overview if you have anything that you want to add, Kimberly. So I'm going to start with sharing my screen. Let me get it set up here. This. Okay, there we go. So everybody see that?
Yes, we can see it.
Working? Okay, good. Okay, so we'll go forward. So today I'm going to give you an overview of our agency. We're also going to talk about our community development framework and our impact investment area work, and then how it connects with the work we're doing here in the West North Avenue area and the intersection with our West Impact Investment area. So DHCD is a large city agency. We have over 400 employees. Our vision and mission is to really support thriving neighborhoods through community revitalization investments, supporting homeowners, and funding critical programs. As you can see from this slide, our operating budget and capital budget are large, but they're really, a lot of that is money that's coming outside of the city, and we're leveraging a lot of other public dollars and grants. So first and foremost, we're always looking through an equity lens in all of the work that we do. So this right here is our equity statement for the agency. And we're just really key is ensuring that we have community voices that are central to all of our neighborhood redevelopment. We want to minimize displacement. We want to support existing homeowners and residents so that they can stay in their homes. And we want to maximize Baltimoreans' access to jobs and prioritize affordable housing in our neighborhood revitalization efforts, and then build an internal team that has the capacity to succeed and willingness to be relentlessly accountable. Within DHCD, we have 5 different operational divisions. So I am the acting deputy commissioner for the development division, and in the development division, we are working to assemble parcels. We head the agency's acquisition and disposition efforts. And we also work on project finance. We also have the home ownership and housing preservation section, which supports new and existing homeowners through grants and repair work, preserves affordable housing and prevents displacement, and helps people to stay in their homes and thrive in their homes. We have our research and consolidated planning section, which really works on our HUD formula grants, such as CDBG, which supports a wide range of housing and social services. And then we have permits and litigation. And then we also have our housing code enforcement and emergency operations. So all of these different divisions are key to our work in communities. So in 2019, we put together the community development framework, and this framework gives us a roadmap for how DHCD is going to engage with communities, how we're going to really just, complete our work in these neighborhoods and support neighborhood revitalization. We're looking to expand resources and capacity for community development, to promote access and equity, and to invest in all neighborhoods. One key part of the community development framework was our identification of our impact investment areas. So these are part of the cities where we're really strategically focusing our work and our proactive work in these neighborhoods, because we see them as poised for transformational change, but needing concentrated city investment. And so we've been working with these communities and with our agency partners on a regular basis to create implementation strategies for these areas, to look at ways that we can address each of the properties in our priority areas through what I'll talk about after this in our block level planning efforts. And I think that the connection to this and the work that we can be doing at the West North Avenue, we could be doing similar types of exercises to look at the properties along North Avenue and within the West North Avenue Development Authority project area to use some of these same strategies. So this map is the map of the West North Avenue Development Authority's boundaries. And the blue outline there kind of roughly is the outline of our West Impact Investment Area. So what in the West Impact Investment Area includes Druid Heights, Penn North, and Upton. And so you can see that it intersects. And so a lot of the work that we've already been doing with the Impact Investment Area is really going to also be relevant to the work we're doing with West North Avenue. And so when we were starting to put together our whole block development strategy, this is where we're looking at each of the blocks within neighborhoods and determining what are the best strategies. So key to identifying some of our priority areas is really looking at the assets in the neighborhood. So this asset map was something that we put together to help us identify where are the key projects that we need to be focusing on and supporting those surrounding neighborhoods to make sure that we're leveraging all of the investment that's going on in these neighborhoods and finding strategies to address the blighted properties that are also in these neighborhoods. And so in addition to looking at kind of our assets, we also did a conditions analysis. So this is where we're looking at where are our concentrations of homeowners that have been there for over 25 years, our legacy homeowners, our newer homeowners, where are people moving into the neighborhood, and where are our rentals, and where are our concentrations of vacant buildings too. So we use this information to really feed into the block level planning, where we identified areas for site assembly, where we're going to target our home ownership supports, where we're going to have priority whole block rehab blocks. So these are blocks that we're working with developers when they come in to identify these areas and work on also acquiring additional properties and disposing of the properties in strategic ways, and also using our receivership as a tool that can be used in neighborhoods. Receivership is a way that the city can address privately owned vacants. Out of our close to 15,000 vacant properties in the city, the majority of those, at least around 13,000, are privately owned. So we don't have as much control over the privately owned vacant, but we can use receivership to get those moved into productive reuse. And then other strategies are that we actually acquire properties so that we can dispose them and really control the outcomes. So we also identified in these exercises, and this block level planning was done in partnership with community members that we meet with. We had monthly meetings with community members discussing in our smaller work group, which is also with the agencies, discussing this block level planning, as well as discussing the high priority projects in the neighborhood and putting together our implementation strategies. And this block level planning really fed into that implementation strategy work. And so these are just, like I was mentioning, DHCD uses acquisitions. So this is within the development division. We acquire properties through several different means. We can acquire properties by donation. That can be one of the quickest ways. If a person is no longer able to cover the liens on a property, they can choose to donate the property to the city. We also, if we have the budget for certain projects, we can purchase property based on the fair market value. And we use condemnation and tax sales foreclosure. And now we have a new tool, which is in-rem tax sale foreclosure. It's really tax lien foreclosure. So this allows the city to speed up that process and be able to acquire properties more quickly through the court system. Each of these, just to be aware, tax lien foreclosure can take up to 2 to 3 years. So we're looking at ways to speed up that process because it is the most affordable way for the city to acquire properties. We don't have to have the fair market value in our budget to use this method, but it is the longest timetable. So condemnations can generally move through the court system in about a year, whereas a tax foreclosure case takes 2 to 3 years of late. And then once we acquire properties, we may identify large site assembly areas, or it might be individual properties, but then we're going to offer them for disposition. And so we have different methods of disposition. What we have open all the time is our open bid. This is where people can go online and select properties that they want to purchase directly from the city. In some areas, we're able to provide occasionally incentives to go with that. And then we have our side yard program, which is to sell properties directly to adjacent owners at a discounted price. We have our request for proposals, and these are for our larger properties or site assembly areas. And then we have an expression of interest, which is a way for the city to gauge the interest in different larger properties that may lead to a request for proposals. And then I just wanted to give an overview as well of our project finance section. So the development division, in addition to dealing with the land, also deals with the financing side of development projects. So under the development division, we have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which is specifically geared towards addressing and providing affordable units to people at or below 50% area median income, and or 30%, at least half of the funds have to be to help those with incomes at or below 30% of the area median income. So these are for very, very low income households, but we put out a notice of funding availability. We've been doing that about twice a year for the past couple of years. And these, there's one round that's for rental, specifically for preservation and creation of new rental units. And then we have also had rounds for community land trusts that have been providing affordable home ownership opportunities that are permanently affordable. And then we have our Community Catalyst grants. This is also a competitive awards program. It provides programs for locally driven community development work. We have both a capital round and an operating round. And we're going to have our next capital round this spring. And this is really geared towards helping our emerging organizations to get started with, especially with the operating grants. Some organizations that aren't able to get operating money through other means, this can provide a small grant to help them get started. And then we have home funds in CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grant Funds. Both of these are federal funds that we have. And this year, we're not going to have a NOFA for our home funds, but in the past, we've used home funds to help supplement some of the state funding that comes into the city. And then we also have, like I said, our Community Development Grant Program, which provides annual grants that help communities for low and moderate income persons in communities. And so that is kind of very high level overview of the department. I can take questions, but we can also go straight into CodeMap. After that, I guess we could do a brief opportunity for questions on the overview and then go into CodeMap. And Kimberly, if you wanted to add anything, you can jump in as well.
No, I don't. I think we should maybe take some questions and then we can go into CodeMap.
So any questions for Kimberly or Kate?
I have a quick question. Thank you for that, Kate. There was a fun category that I was not familiar with, unfunded demolition. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, so when we're working internally on our block level planning, we make a distinction. We will identify areas that the community may have voiced to us they really would like to see demolition, but we haven't yet identified the funds for it. So that's what the unfunded demolition. It's an area that is a
Thank
high priority for demolition, but we don't have the money yet.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any additional questions, comments? Okay,
Ms. Mayo?
So there's
Yes,
a raised hand.
Yes, please.
Yes, hi. So I attend quite a number of community meetings within the district. And a pain point is the ability of private owners to, especially from out of state, to come in and take vacant housing and sit on it. And in a meeting with City Council President last week, 2 weeks ago, he talked about disincentivizing the private owner. So what are your thoughts? What are any plans or how are you looking towards helping communities? One community was about to purchase 4 vacant homes and they were swooped out from under them to be sat on by the private owner for multiple years.
So that's, I can only assume that they're talking about the receivership program. Do you know if that was receivership that this was addressing? Yeah. So in a receivership, that is where the city can use the court system to force an auction of private property. But one of the drawbacks, of course, is that it has to be a public auction and we cannot control the outcome of that public auction. But within the agreement that when they purchase the properties, they are required to redevelop the properties within a year. And so if that is not met, then there are methods for the city could then re-receivership the property. And so it is a code enforcement tool that when somebody purchases a property through receivership, they have the option to demolish the property or to bring it up to code within that year. So we're definitely looking at it and seeing what other options we have, but it is one of the reasons that we often in neighborhoods where communities really want to have more of that control over the outcome, we're looking at acquisition and disposition. It can be a longer timeline for the city to acquire the property, but it does give the city more of the determination at the end as to who can purchase the properties.
So I'll contact you offline, Kate, because I would like to be able to share those options with communities. Thank you.
Yep. And I can also connect you with our Deputy Commissioner, Jason Hessler, who is over the code enforcement section, and they manage the receivership process.
Excellent. Thank you. Great questions, great conversation. Thank you, Kate. It's very helpful information. Any other questions, comments for Kate? All right, hearing none. And if you were trying to get off of mute, please just interrupt. But if there are none, let's move into, did you say Kimberly had a?
Yes,
Yes,
Kimberly and
hi.
Henry. I'm gonna do it together.
Hi, I'll
Okay.
just do a brief introduction of myself. Thank you so much for inviting me to join this board. My name is Kimberly Rubens. I am both the Chief of Policy and Research as well as the Director of Research and Analytics for the agency. So I work very closely with Kate on block level planning and all things development planning related. I just again want to underscore, as she mentioned about receivership, it is a community development tool, but the only tool in our suite of development activities that we cannot actually control the outcome of. So I look forward to being able to work with this group on how to make sure we maintain local control over these properties. That being said, as I mentioned, I work very closely with Kate, and it's because I also lead the research team for our agency. And I am joined by my colleague, Henry Waldron, who will share his screen momentarily to talk about what we call CodeMap. So just to orient everyone to the tool, CodeMap stands for Community Development Map. It is composed of 39 parcel layers over 100 program layers. And what it really is a repository for at least a dozen different data sources that the agency uses in its strategic planning. And this tool is used at every level of the agency, from the senior team for block level planning, as Kate alluded to and demonstrated via her presentation, down to our code enforcement inspectors when they are trying to address and look into other opportunities and ways to intervene on what we call our high flyer properties. So those are properties that might have several open citations or notices on them. One thing I want to make sure that is a very important distinction about CodeMap is it is a central place for information. It is not necessarily a statting tool, as people on this call might be familiar with CityStat and kind of things like CleanStat or CrimeStat. It's really a development and a planning tool. So we use it on a longer time horizon than just like looking. We can get instant information, but that's not its primary use. We launched our second version of it in the summer of 2020 and are always happy to give, we typically give an hour-long tutorial on how to use and access all of the wonderful information that's embedded in CodeMap. We're going to try to condense it into 15 minutes to give you a taste of what some of our most popular use cases are for the tool. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over. I guess I will, before I turn it over to Henry Waldron, my colleague in research and analytics, I would just pause for questions about kind of the background of CodeMap and how it's used. And
Ted, I think I saw your hand. Is that still a question?
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Okay, please.
Mr. President. So Kate and Kimberly, good afternoon. Can you, as
Hello.
this development authority launches, what would be your advice to the group of how to accelerate and augment your efforts? How can we make this 1 and 1 equal 3? I know that math doesn't work, but you know what I mean.
yeah, as a data person, you know that math doesn't work, but
But yeah, how can you know? Yeah, so that's the question.
that's a great question. And I'm being put on the spot here, so please everyone just bear with me. And you know, we can't make these firm commitments yet, but we're definitely interested in. My advice would be to replicate the block level planning that we've done in our impact investment areas for this geography, this geographic boundary. We didn't dive into it today, but one of the things that's really powerful about CodeMap and the way that our agency uses it is that we literally have gone property by property, block by block in each of the 7 impact investment areas to identify the most important and what we think is the most high leverage target development intervention. And so that's all of the things that Kate mentioned, right? So it's home ownership. So is this a block that has a high percentage of home ownership? So we want to focus on making sure that legacy residents and longtime residents have access to home repair capital to be able to age with grace in their home and be able to take advantage of development activity that's going on in this footprint. Do we want to demolish a certain set of properties and assemble them for a new construction or some sort of site assembly or community use? But I think it's really going through that iterative process that is both community driven and relying on the expertise of the people on this call who understand the conditions of this neighborhood to plan for that. And then one of the amazing parts about how this information is stored is because it's all stored in this mapping system, we can then give a cost estimate, right? So we can tell you how much it's going to cost to do the work that we want to do in the impact investment areas. The amount is there's a bit of sticker shock with that, but at least having that information and then being able to go to foundations, to the state, to different partners to be able to assemble the capital that you're going to need to be able to do that development work. So that would be my advice.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what I
And
love
there
about
is a
your analysis is just provides the authority and the incoming CEO with some data to begin to develop a strategy around. And so
exactly,
ultimately we want to complement the impact investment area work and vice versa,
Mhm.
right? So there should be an
Exactly.
integrated plan over time, so that we're not starting from scratch.
Of course, and I my other recommendation would be for the Development Authority. I know there is a limited budget, but probably investing in some sort of GIS, either capabilities, either through a contractor, because you know this work could be done one time and then maintained by someone by the Development Authority who can, and my team can provide some technical assistance on that in terms of like setting you up with what we call like a sandbox to be able to start to because what it means is you literally start drawing on a map, like, okay, this is rehab block, this is site assembly block, this is demolition block, this is new construction block, that sort of thing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I know I'm going real technical now, so please pause and ask questions if you have them.
That's great, Kimberly. Thank you. And no, that's
Mhm.
very helpful. Ted, thank you for that great question. And obviously, this is an area that we'll be having some more conversations as we look at, you know, how do we go block by block in our strategy towards the overall end goal. I think I saw Minister Smith. Did I see your hand up?
Yes, Mr. President, and there needs to be further conversation because the Coppin Heights CDC has experienced, we have a master plan in place and we have identified houses that we were planning on redeveloping. We've worked with the city around receivership, and after doing the work around receivership, I heard Kate say that, you know, the auction has to be public, but for us to do the work, have a plan in place, and then have predatory investors come in and overbid us for housing, even though we have resources to do purchasing, we can't compete with those investors that have the long dollars that come from out of state. So how can we, you know, get our plan implemented if we're getting all this competition from investors that just want to come in and not particularly deal with the community, but make the dollars off of and may not even be doing quality renovations. So we need to have further discussions around it to find out how we can ensure that community development corporations are able to compete for these houses.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing that, and I've already had some conversations with Senator Hayes, that really one of the focus areas that we need for this area is the acquisition of property. So rather than using receivership, which can be a useful tool if you want to get properties out of derelict conditions and get them back into use. But if you really want to be able to address a plan and make some of the changes that you want to see that are more tailored to the community, then I think acquiring the properties and knowing that that's going to be a longer timeline, but and it's going to require the capital to do it in a shorter timeline. But that's really the strategy that we have to start looking at, is doing some of those acquisitions so then we control the outcome on the other end.
Well, I'll be getting in touch with you, Kate, offline.
Thank you. Any other questions before we go into our next presentation? All right, hearing none. Then Kimberly, I will turn it back over to you so we can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Jink. Oh, so was someone going to jump in? I thought I heard someone unmute themselves.
No,
No,
that was
okay.
Let me.
All right. Okay, well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to my excellent colleague, Henry Waldron, who's our program manager at DHCD, and he will give you just a flavor of how CodeMap is used and some of the key tools and features that will be helpful as this committee coalesces around its development efforts.
Thanks, Kimberly. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to share CodeMap. As Kimberly said, we do love sharing it and talking about it. So I will give you sort of the quick rundown of what it is and how to use it. So when you navigate to CodeMap, the website, this is the screen that you'll see. This initial splash screen gives you a little bit of opening information as well as some training resources. You can press OK to get through to the main mapping application. And this is what you'll see. This is the home page of CodeMap. And on the left, you'll see the legend, which only displays layers that are currently turned on and visible. On the right-hand side, you will see the layer list, which has different categories of layers. You'll notice that some are kind of grayed out. That just means the map is zoomed out too far to see them. So as you zoom in the map, either using your mouse or you can click these buttons in the bottom left corner, or by searching for property, which will also zoom you in, more and more layers will become visible, and you'll see them in the layer list, and you'll also see them in the legend. Okay, and at the very top, you'll see the search bar, and there's a couple of quick notes about that. If you click on this link button, it will take you to additional DHCD resources. We have a gallery with tools, also the DHCD website, and a couple of other pages that you can explore. Since this is the quick version, I will not go into detail there, but I will jump into how to use CodeMap and what it's typically used for. As Kimberly said, a lot of different people use CodeMap for a variety of different purposes, but at its core, it's a good research tool. It has all of DHCD's data, or most of it, all in one place. It's on the map. That's typically one of the best ways to kind of display a multitude of data sets. And so I'll get down into it. The most important thing I think to know about CodeMap is using the search bar. If you're interested in a specific property, this is the best way to navigate to it. So I'll just do one that's kind of in the boundaries of the area that we're talking about today. And so as you type in an address, you'll get suggestions. And this real property is kind of the city's property database, and that will take you directly to the address once you click on it, and it will zoom you in. And as I said, the layers that were grayed out are now black. You can manipulate them, turn them on, turn them off, and you can expand them. That's an important note to sort of get down into more detail. So the layers that you see now are the layers that are on by default. So you can see purple properties represent owner-occupied buildings. I will add one quick note. Some strange glitches happening that is preventing owner-occupied properties from appearing in the legend, but just to make a note that purple is owner-occupied. Everything else is on there. And then you'll see, yellow triangles represent receivership. Buildings with these kind of gray stripes going through them mean that they are under permit. And so as you keep using CodeMap, the more you use it, the more you kind of are able to get a sense of what's going on at the block level, without even clicking on anything. So you can see here, okay, this block has a handful of vacant buildings, as seen with the orange squares. There's some active receiverships and a handful of homeowners. So you sort of begin to get a sense of what's going on in this area just by looking at the colors. The next level of detail that I would suggest using as you use CodeMap is clicking on a specific property to get more information. And so if you click on this property, you'll get the address, the block lot, which is the property identifier that HCD uses, the neighborhood, the owner name, the last or most recent sale date, as well as the price, and the current zoning. You'll also see a variety of links down here. And so you can click on notices. For example, we know this building with the orange square has a vacant building notice. We'll tell you when this notice was issued. Then you can also click and it will take you to the city's website. Sorry for the delay, but you'll see again some more of the same information. You can actually click on a PDF to get the actual notice. Similarly, you can get information about recent citations. You can read about any permits that have been on the property or are currently on the property, any legal notes. You can also see if a property is licensed. That relates to our property rental registration and licensing. So you can see a yes or a no if the property is licensed. Another really important link is the SDAT link, which takes you to the State Department of Assessments and Taxation's property records, and that will tell you the transaction history of the property that you're clicked on. You can also get a link to our neighborhood data profile. So again, we saw that we're in Walbrook. Click on the data profile, and it's just kind of like a custom tool that we built that shows information about the neighborhood, some housing data, as well as some census data. So you see population change, racial demographics, age pyramid, and this is several pages. So there's more information. You can see the average household size and things like that. All right, so that's the property pop-up, and that will work for any property that has this gray outline. You'll see it. You can't click on like a street and get the pop-up, but anything that has a gray border will give you the pop-up. Let's see here. I know the sharing menu is in the way of the tools at the bottom, so I'm trying to figure out how to move the panel. Does anybody know how to move the, I'm not sure if you can see the sharing panel that's on my screen, but it's kind of this long panel. As I share my screen, I can't get to my little tools at the bottom of CodeMap.
It looks like you were able to hover over them in it for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, I can just get them.
Yeah.
All right. So there are several tools at the bottom. The customized tool set allows you to change the base map. So right now we just have this kind of like basic gray base map. There's some other ones that offer aerial imagery. I will advise that those take a very long time to load just because of the nature of the data behind those. There is an add data tool. So if you have a spreadsheet with addresses on it, you can actually add that into the map and the points will appear as long as you have like a column that says Baltimore, Maryland, and it will help put those points on the map. We also have a draw tool. So this sort of gets to, part of what Kimberly was talking about with the block level planning. It allows you to draw custom shapes, or if you're interested in putting a circle around a specific block or something like that. And you can also add text to here and say, we can edit it and say test area and save. And so these will, if you're using CodeMap, these will be on your map. Nobody else will be able to see them, but you can share the map, and I will show you how to do that as well. The last tool in the customized tool set is the measurement tool, which allows you to either choose to get a length or measurements of a specific area. So if you click on this, you can see how many square miles a specific block is. And that, okay, rounds down, I guess. But okay. So that's the customized tool set. And I apologize if I'm going quickly. Okay, so this is the analyze tool set. This is pretty cool. You can actually select data and get a spreadsheet from it using this tool. So you click on this tool and you have to click to draw a shape. Click on every kind of corner of the shape that you want and double click to finish your shape. It will capture all the data and all of the layers that are currently on. You'll notice these are grayed out because the Adopt-A-Lot layer is not on, the tax certificate layer is not turned on, but properties under permit are on. So if you're interested in this data set, click these 3 dots and export to a CSV file, and you'll have a printout of all the properties that are under permit within the shape that you just drew. And so this is how you access some of the data in a specific custom area. And then if you're interested in just kind of a larger scale version of the data, you can click the download data tool, and it will take you to a list of links where you can access data in Open Baltimore. So we use Open Baltimore as kind of our repository to get these data sets. It slows down the map significantly if we had all these data sets available for download within CodeMap. So that's why we rely on Open Baltimore, which is a great tool for finding city data. The next tool is the share data share tool set. You can print the map. So whatever extent in the map you're looking at. So if you're interested in this area specifically, you can just click print and it will generate a PDF, and it will also include a legend similar to this one that has all the layers on it that you have turned on. And finally, we have the share tool, which allows you to copy the link to exactly what you're looking at. And so if you copy this link and send it to somebody in an email, they can open it up and it will take them exactly to where you are looking at in this map. And the last thing that I wanted to add is if you have been, going through CodeMap and you, turned on a handful of layers, and you're, interested in enterprise zones and community associations and things like that, you have all these custom layers turned on. You're worried about losing them. That's okay. If you, close CodeMap or you refresh it, you have to click through the splash screen once again, but there's this button at the bottom right corner, which allows you to click to return to previous session, which will take you to exactly where you were with the same layers. And so that is sort of the quick and dirty version of CodeMap. I didn't get to go through all of the layers, but I think that's something that everyone can explore on their own. And I'll pause here for questions.
Thank you, Henry. Are there any questions? Okay, I see Ms. Mayo.
Yes, sir. So Senator Hayes has a bill, SB 678, that the purpose is to mask the race of a home buyer, because we found that in selling homes, when the sale is about to be consummated, when race was discovered, either the home was devalued or the sale didn't go through. And so that's the context. What is the value of displaying the racial demographics in CodeMap of an area?
I think I'll just say that that's in the sort of like the neighborhood profile. So there's no like specific information about each of the buyers that shows an individual's race. We do have the data profile, and you're correct. It does have a breakdown of racial demographics. I think that's probably useful for people who are doing equity work. They're interested in, areas that have, sales prices at different price points, and how does the neighborhood change, and just sort of getting a sense of that. And I think it also helps DHCD, kind of work on its ability to, maintain equitable development as part of the equity statement that Kate mentioned at the beginning. So yeah, I think there's some benefits to it, but there's no sort of individual information like that.
I'll just echo that. It's definitely not available at the property level, and it's something that, as Kate mentioned in our equity statement, we take very seriously. And so we are able to, through our own internal tools, look at changes in racial demographics over time, which is really helpful for us when we're doing our community development work, right? When we talk about development without displacement.
Now, mind you, that's not Senator Hayes speaking. It's
Of
me
course, of
kind of
course.
connecting the dots, and the question is, what's the benefit? Not that it shouldn't be there. I'm just, what's the purpose?
Yeah,
of it?
and our purpose is development without displacement, right? And making sure that we're doing everything that we can in our power as an agency to ensure that people that want to stay in their neighborhoods, even if they do see rising price values, are able to do so. And that's, through home repair upgrades, the variety of we have a tax sale/outreach ombudsman person who can help get people connected to the homeowners and homestead tax credit, deed planning, all of that sort of preservation work. That's very important to us. Is that helpful?
Yes, very much so. Thank you.
Of course. And I hope that assuages some of your concern.
So my hand, this is Sherry from Micah, was also up, but let me respond to that real quickly, that the information has to be gathered at the granular level, at the individual level, for us to know the group information, but the two processes are blind to each other. So, so someone knows the granular level, but not the home who will be doing the work for the at the grand level. And right now, this information is really important as the West Side is starting to heat up as a real estate market. And that's really important. I do know I am going to ask. So Micah is one of the anchor institutions here, and it's great that you went through how to use the map. But and I don't know if President Jenkins has asked this, but at some point we will need to come back, and after we prioritize areas and go building by building. And I don't know if you plan to stay with us or come back at some point as we do that. There are lots of meetings around the city where we go building by building, and we know the code status of individual buildings and what the approach is. And we're going to have to get to that level at some point.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think that's part of that block level planning that Kimberly talked about. So once we're at a place where we're ready to do that, I think DHCD would be happy to come back. I mean, I'm here all the time, I'm going to be here at every meeting, but
thank you.
We can definitely support and provide technical advice, but I just also would encourage this group to consider finding capacity for someone to maintain that themselves, because the information can change, right? Like you might do planning 1 year and identify a block for demolition, but then all of a sudden you start to see some market activity and more homeowners are moving in. So then maybe you want to pivot to a home ownership support model. Does that make sense?
Sure. Can I ask one more question? I mean, we all know a couple of weeks ago, some firefighters were killed trying to save a vacant building. I imagine or hope that means more resources are coming to the table to address vacant buildings. Is that something we foresee at the city or the state level? Or is it something we can talk about at this point?
I'm going to defer to Deputy Mayor Carter on that. Are you still on the call?
Yes, could they repeat?
Okay. Yes, we can hear you.
You want me to repeat that?
Yes, please.
Okay. Hi, this is Sherry from Micah. And what I was mentioning is that we all know that a few weeks ago, several firefighters were killed trying to protect a vacant building. It had been opened and closed, people kept boarding it up. Well, the city kept boarding it up and people kept pulling it off. And so they had no way of knowing if there were people inside. And I wonder, it may be premature to ask this question, but I want to ask it anyway, if that means that we can foresee more resources coming to the table to address vacant buildings.
Yeah, I think I don't want to overspeak or set expectations, but as you probably saw 3 weeks ago now, right after the fire, the mayor convened a multi-agency task force led by the city administrator to review all of the processes associated with reducing the number of vacancies, touching on a lot of the methodologies that Commissioner Edwards outlined in her presentation. And so as we move toward making an ARPA announcement regarding housing, I think you'll see significant resources dedicated as part of that announcement to reducing vacant properties.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other questions? And thank you, Dr. Parks, for those questions that are extremely important as we continue to look forward. Any other questions, comments?
Dr. Jenkins, sorry, Sherry, I was trying to look up the governor's budget in terms of resources that are coming to the city. There is $10 million for neighborhood public safety grants and $122 million for aid to local jurisdictions around public safety, which has yet to be defined. So probably in a few weeks, we will have better answers as things begin to solidify. But there are resources coming to the state, and how vacant housing will be couched.
Okay.
We don't know. Okay. Thanks.
No, that's excellent. Thank you. Any other question, topic, discussions around that issue before we move to Theo? All right, Theo, are you still with us?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chair. Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It is a pleasure. And I'm going to turn it over to you, and I'll let you present in the manner in which you deem appropriate.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Of course, I'm going to ask everyone if they could also see my screen.
Not at the moment. It may be popping up.
Okay, let me see again.
Not yet.
How about now?
No, we're still seeing you, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just okay, here we go. Now there you go. It is populated now. We have it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, President Jenkins, and it's always good to be here. Theo Ngongong here. I'm the Deputy Director for Baltimore City Department of Transportation, and I'm going to provide a quick overview of what we do at DOT. I am probably going to give an overview that doesn't necessarily touch up on the exact location, let's say perimeter of the West North Avenue Redevelopment Authority, but yet I'll come back to address specific areas that I think, for which I think DOT could be of a valuable asset to the authority as we move forward. So who are we? Baltimore City DOT is about 1,200 people working very, very tirelessly towards our mission. Our mission is to maintain and improve transportation infrastructure in the city, and the goal is to provide a safe and reliable, accessible, and efficient system for everyone that in fact provides for multiple ways of transportation and multiple and sustainable ways of transportation for everybody, the city residents, the business, and the businesses and the visitors. And the goal eventually is, of course, to promote livable and vibrant community across the city. Our main focus as an operating agency, and I'll get down to the numbers in terms of the size of our budget, both our operating budget and our capital budget. Our main focus here is really threefold. One, of course, state of good repair. We need to take care of our assets. And what are those? We have the bridges, we have the roads, we have the tunnels. We also are really, really focused on safety. Safety is paramount to DOT. DOT, in terms of safety, has established two programs. One is called Vision Zero, that is actually moving towards zero, which is really more of a state level program for which we have hired a specific planner. And the complete street, and I will also go back into it later on in the presentation, which is both a piece of legislation that was approved by the City Council in late 2018, and then adopted by the City Council, but the accompanying piece is being the complete street manual was actually adopted last year as well, probably about a year ago from here. And the other thing that we do at DOT is provide some level of transit services, not necessarily MTA. So sometimes people do confuse us. I'm not sure why. We are not a transit agency, but we do have a couple of transit services, one over our waters, which is the Maritime Transit. It's a water taxi and the harbor connector. And then the other one is the Tramsair Circulator that everybody likes because it's free and goes pretty much everywhere, even though it started as a downtown core service. I'll get into that later as well. What are our priorities? I think I've already stated that our main priority is really state of good repair. What that means is we need to keep our current infrastructure at a level, at a decent level. And by that, I mean that we are tasked by the federal government to every 2 years to assess the structural conditions of our bridges. We are also mandated, because we do receive federal dollars on our capital improvement program, which is our capital budget. I'll get to it soon as well. We are also mandated, as I was saying, just to provide a safe system of transportation. And by safe, it's really a matter of, number one, just taking care of the potholes and making sure that crumbling infrastructure, because it's the story of our lives, is actually at least kept to a level that is sufficient for people not to get hurt. I mentioned the complete street already. I mentioned Vision Zero. The idea with Vision Zero is really to prioritize areas where we have seen the multiple crashes happening over time. So we also will discuss this a little bit later. The idea, again, is to make sure that we are addressing the need of the residents where we think, we collectively, we and the residents think that the needs are there. So we put aside some money on our capital improvement program to make sure that some of those areas of high crash are targeted to be funded for capital improvement. When I'm talking about local transit, it's really, of course, the circulator, as I mentioned earlier, but we are also becoming a little bit more innovative. We have embarked upon a program that is a scooter program that has become very popular in the city. The scooters program is a contract that is currently operated by 3 companies. It's really a permit that they operate under that allows them to drop their vehicles and allows the residents and the visitors to utilize them on a very user-friendly basis. What we are facing in Baltimore City, unfortunately, of course, I mentioned one is our aging infrastructure. There's just no way around it. We have some bridges that are over 100 years old, that are way past their prime, so to speak. We are also facing, including during COVID, with the rising cost of infrastructure. We are also facing the case of less money coming our ways, and this is a topic we can probably jump into any time. We're getting less state dollars coming from Annapolis, and less than we used to, and it's hard for us even just to maintain the matching funds when we receive federal dollars. We are facing with a city that is not safe for the usual residents, because there are way too many traffic related injuries and fatalities. So those are issues that we are facing at DOT, and we hope to be focusing on them as we move forward. If I'm giving you an overview of how CIP is, really to give you, first of all, a sense of the size of our budget. So our capital budget is broken into 3 categories. The first one is the monies that we receive from the federal government, which is about 30 million. And of course, it is allocated through the state highway and administration. And we do have to provide some matches, as I was stating earlier. The next piece of dollars that we use in the CIP is something that we call the county transportation bond revenue. So we borrow money to be used in 3 years, most of the time, again, just for the purpose of helping us to close the gaps that we see in our funding. And the third part of money is what we call the local money. The local money is what I was referring to as money coming from both DO bonds and also from our highway user revenue that have been decreasing over time in a very uncharacteristic way. And it is part of what we hope to be fighting for, even down in Annapolis these days. We have several elected officials that have told us that they will be looking at this as a critical area of concern down in Annapolis. I'm going to skip this one. It's really a matter of really telling the reality as it is, even including the best possible projections. We would still not meet our state of good repair if we were to receive the money that we need to get there, whether it's today or whether it's in the next 20 years. And on the left, you can see that, again, part of what we focus on, as I mentioned earlier, roadways, bridges, alleyways, traffic signals, DOT facilities, meaning our own bicycle facilities, street lighting, transit infrastructure. And on top of that, I'm going to add another one, which is ADA compliance. We are being faced with a class act lawsuit for folks that have been injured trying to go from one part of the road to the other and not being able to access the other because of its non-ADA compliance. Unfortunately, yes, most of our sidewalks are not ADA compliant. It's just the fact. Yet, we just don't have enough money to even fix that if we were to fix it today. So part of what we've done in order to get ready for the lawsuit is really to start assessing what our needs are in terms of putting together a budget that would go towards a fixing, or at least attempting to fix our ADA compliance issues. This is huge and it's not part of this list, but it's just a matter of letting you all know that on top of what we are struggling to really do, we are now being literally mandated to focus on ADA compliance, as if the city is in fact found liable. I don't know, we might almost lose our job, though, I don't know. This is what we are facing. What we have, our assets, is pretty important in terms of the size. We are looking at Interstate 83 with some new information that you guys might touch upon that might be useful, including the fact that we are installing cameras there to reduce speed in the long run, of course, but cameras that would generate revenues for us, for the city in general. We have our bridge down south. And again, this is really far from where we are, but again, we're giving you just an anniversary bridge, which is older than 100 years, which needs some repairs, but yet we are having the hardest time in the world just to provide some capital dollars to address the needs. Again, other areas where we are putting some dollars on our capital program, the reality is, again, we are explaining kind of how, even given the scarcity of resources, we are split into so many directions. That's really what this boils down to. I mentioned the bridge program already, and the requirement that we are faced with every 2 years doesn't mean that more than one bridge cannot be broken at the same time. It only adds pressure on us to face and address the issues as they come our way. Currently, there are about 7 bridges that are in construction. A couple of them are ready, literally ready for this coming spring for reopening. Those are bridges that have been literally in all phases of construction, including design for the part of 5 to 10 years. That's just how long it takes, including how we get the money. Touching up on this, I mentioned earlier the high crash intersections that we've established and that we've identified in the city, and how we plan to put some dollars in our capital program to literally address it. We call it quick fixes, but we also call it at times just safety improvement projects that really are targeting. And this is not far from where we are. There are at least 4 intersections that are literally within the realm of our authority here. So important elements to make sure that we keep an eye on it as we move forward. And I'll come back to explain how, from a staff capacity standpoint, we are also increasing our ability to really target some of those specific to the west side of the city. Vision Zero, same thing again. Besides addressing the high crash intersections, we are also looking at the crosswalks that need some love. We are also looking at, as I stated earlier, with our quick fix project, things that we think do not require necessarily capital dollars, so we just go and do it with our local monies. Again, same approach. We are trying to be both progressive, meaning thinking, forward thinking about what other transportation alternative exists, but in the meantime, we are trying to address our needs as they are presenting themselves to us, because those needs have to be fixed as well. To come back to one of our programs that now is going to guide our investment in Baltimore City, the Complete Street, both the piece of legislation and the manual, which is the accompanying document, really focuses on looking at transportation investment in Baltimore City through the lenses of equity, but also through a new way of approaching our investment through project prioritization. In terms of model hierarchy, and this also gives a sense of how our mandate has shifted, the model hierarchy really calls for where the city believes, at least the DOT, believes that our focus should be when it comes to transportation investment. So we go from walking, so prioritizing pedestrians, all the way down to single occupancy vehicles at number 4, as somehow a paradigm shift here, when we all know that 50 years ago, the cars were literally the kings of the road. We are trying to literally right that wrong in a sense, or let's say from a policy standpoint, part of what we're trying to do is make sure that our investment is really focused on where we think the residents are meeting us. And again, it's walking, it's cycling, it's using public transit, it's understanding that business is business, business has to be conducted, so making sure that we accommodate the commercial vehicles as well. And then it's a single occupancy. So again, some sort of a cultural change at DOT as well. The Complete Street manual itself, and I don't want to get into details, it might get a little bit confusing, but the reality is it imposes us every year to report to the city council in August as to how we have integrated some of those factors into selecting the project that we want to see funded for with the capital dollars. So it helps us, or at least it tells us, it's not even helping us, it's more than that, to, as we identify the project, to go through this, all the phases, but also to make sure that the project itself is checking all the boxes that we've identified. And what that helps us to do is really to focus on the project that are in areas where the conditions were not the best, instead of just focusing on projects where, let's say downtown, we thought maybe we would be working with the squeaky wheels, right? The big developers that are coming and that are making all the noises that they want and usually are have the good years of everyone. So now it's really a matter of looking at our project prioritization through the lenses of equity. And equity criteria are defined in the manual. Again, what it does also, it provides us with some sort of a framework. We are redefining our cities. We are re-establishing a set of classification for our streets. All this being done within criteria that we've established. That would give us a better idea, and each time, each project will be different, but it will give us a better idea of how to incorporate concepts that were either never incorporated in our approach to investing in transportation, or were just let to the side. Concepts such as, making sure that all people have access to our streets, meaning if somebody on a wheelchair wants to cross the street, it shouldn't be as hard as it is today. If a kid is playing with his or her ball and the ball goes across from the street, crossing that street is not as a difficult task as taking their lives into their own hands. So that's kind of where the complete street approach is trying to model our investment, is really making sure that all the users of our street are treated equally. I mentioned our transit services very briefly, gives you a sense also of programs that we are right now in the process of actually advancing. We are leading a transit development plan to revamp the route of the transit of the Charm City Circulator. Part of what it's really going to get us to in terms of recommendation is probably to relook at literally the routes that are working, the ones that are not working. We have the purple line, we have the orange route, purple route, the green route, and the banner route that goes to Fort McHenry. How are they doing now? Are we losing money? Are we gaining money? Are we having enough users to keep the project, the program going? All those elements, and what part of the city, of course, is not being served by the circulator. All those questions have been studied, and we have the help of a consulting firm to really determine the future of the Charm City Circulator. So we probably by late this spring, early this summer, will have some level of information to share with the public. But this is first time we're conducting a transit development plan, and the goal again is to make sure that transit is equitable in Baltimore City, public transit that is. I'm also sharing this with you. Of course, I mentioned the Harbor Connector that has 3 routes, and we have the water taxi that is a private service also operating on our waters. The Harbor Connector has the first route that connects Locust Point to Martin Park, and then the second one that connects. It's funny how my eyes are. I think you can see on the screen. I'm trying to read, but Pier 5 to Federal Hill, and then on the other side, we're trying to connect Locust Point to Buster Street on the other side. How are we organized? And this is the last slide, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. The Department of Transportation is really split into 4 deputy directorates, so to speak. As one of the deputy directors, my portfolio really entails planning, policy, transit, and regional transportation. I sit on the BRTV, which is the Regional Transportation Board at the local MPO, which is the Metropolitan Planning Council down at BMC, and I represent the mayor there. So I take care of the policy side, and then we have a deputy director that is in charge of Complete Street and who is also our chief engineer. And she has just been, I think she joined the city 6 months ago, Corinne Johnson. We have a deputy director that is in charge of operations. So that is everything that has to do with maintenance and safety and towing and conduits. And then we have a deputy director who is in charge of administration in a nutshell, who works on, who oversees our contract, who oversees our IT, who oversees our HR, who does the good stuff that we all need. So that's about the overall structure. If I were to come back before I take questions to North Avenue itself, I don't know if you guys are aware, but you might have seen this on when we're riding on Baltimore, on North Avenue. About 5 years ago, MTA won a federal grant. At the time it was called Tiger Grant. And I hope I'm not stealing your thunder there, Mr. Patrick, but part of what I'm really bringing up here is that we do, in collaboration with MTA, we've done a lot of work on North Avenue Rising, which is a project that MDOT won, that MTA won as part of Tiger Grant some years back. As I was saying, is a project for which we contributed, and we are still contributing. We are helping MTA to address issues that are mainly related to signal timing prioritization, and also, of course, dedicated bus lanes, those red big bus lanes that you've seen on North Avenue. But we've also utilized this as a way of looking at specific intersections that needed all kinds of improvements. So it's an ongoing project that is almost to literally reaching its construction, the end of its construction life. But it's one example of saying that as we move forward with this, with this endeavor, we can capitalize on working with MTA, because we've worked with MTA. We've also, I'm just bringing this up, but further south, we've recently won a RAISE grant, which is a similar grant as the Tiger, different names, from the federal government to work on the east-west connection, which is literally the largest, like the longest corridor between Baltimore County on one side and Howard County on the other side, going through the city, over Route 40 and downtown and further east. All of those examples are really examples to say that we do work in great collaboration with MTA, and we look forward to doing more of that on North Avenue. The last piece I want to touch up on is the fact that we have beefed up our planning shop at DOT. I have divided the city in a 4-quadrant, and we have each of them an assigned DOT planner, along with a resource. We used to call them transportation liaisons, a resource from our stakeholders engagement team. And on top of that, we also have traffic engineers associated with those quadrants. So the goal, the vision here was, as the city is roughly divided in 4 quadrants, we have a planner, also a Baltimore City planner too, but a DOT planner, a DOT liaison, a traffic engineer, all associated with everything that goes around, and all being kind of our first line of defense, so to speak. So you should have, we all as the authority should have the resources to come back to DOT and say, this is what we found, how can we do it? I'm gonna stop here. I am ready for questions if there are any. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
So my hand is up, but I want to make sure that since I've talked a lot, that there are not other people who want to talk first.
Well, let me also, before you go, Dr. Parks, there's a question about a copy of your presentation. Any reservations about?
Of course not. Oh, yeah. I
Okay.
did send a copy to Aaron last night, so you can
Okay.
definitely, yeah, absolutely.
We'll share that accordingly. So thank you very much.
Of course.
Dr. Parks, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask next steps, because I can imagine multiple ways of next steps in terms of our engaging, the authority engaging with your office. But could you map those out? I imagine there are several. Clearly, I mean, you just identified us as a stakeholder, which I think is important. Are you interested in co-proposals for federal grants, or would you prefer us come through you directly, or just what do those steps look like?
I am open. Remember, Dr. Parks, this is only the second meeting of our board. I think I'm most importantly, I'm interested in innovative ideas. If we as a group can come up with alternative ways of looking for federal dollars or state dollars, and if it has to go through some sort of a grant writing, I mean, I'm open. Honestly, we believe that we do have to look at innovative ways for funding transportation because of the scarcity of the resources that we currently have. Yet we also believe that we haven't explored all the options that are out there because unfortunately, we just sometimes just focusing on what we do. But any idea, anything that might even link up to the elected officials that we have on this board, I think would be welcome. I think I'll be on the receiving end of this, and we can definitely chat.
So it sounds like one approach, not trying to dictate, would be you've already identified the problem areas in the sector, is to go back and look at that list and then in conversation with you, figure out the best avenues for projected funding and how we approach them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I'm also just thinking out loud here. We could do.
We both are. Yeah.
So we could identify a list of projects with a sense of urgency. So what we call low-hanging fruits are projects that we can address very quickly within our own local dollars. Project that might look like they need a longer term in terms of planning. Those would be like the mid-range, and then long-term project, capital project that might require more than all of us here. We can, if we rank those projects into buckets and we start addressing each of them within where it is located, I think, yes, we can set a path forward in terms of where we want to go and how we want to achieve it with some sort of like incremental milestone.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Doc. Any other questions, comments, discussion? All right, hearing none. I thank you very much.
Thank you.
And again, we will share the presentation with everyone who would like to have a copy of that. Kate Sylvester, are you with us?
This is Patrick McMahon. I'm representing Kate Sylvester.
Okay.
I don't have a presentation pulled together, but I was planning on just doing a bit of an overview about the investments that Baltimore City, that MDOT/MTA has made as part of the North Avenue Rising project. I think a lot of the folks along here are familiar with this, but wanted to go through that very briefly. I know
So that'd be
past
great.
time.
So thank you, Patrick. If I'll yield to you and you can start your talking points.
Okay. And I
Thank
did put a link to the North Avenue Rising website in the chat so that folks can take a look at that there. Theo kindly mentioned North Avenue Rising is a $27 million joint project between MDOT/MTA and Baltimore City DOT that was funded in part with a $10 million federal grant. And that grant funded, as Theo mentioned, the addition of 7 miles of dedicated bus lanes along North Avenue, transit signal priority, new sidewalks, curb ramps, street trees, pedestrian lighting in targeted commercial areas, repaving along much of North Avenue, several new traffic signals, bus stop enhancements. At the Penn North Metro Station, we installed new elevators. We made updates to the escalators. We installed new lighting as well as a new mural at that station. And then we also did some traffic calming on parallel streets and some bike infrastructure on the street as well. The project covers all of North Avenue, but the focus of the investments has been in West North Avenue. And the grant was awarded in 2016. We started design in 2017 and continued design through most of 2018. Construction started in late 2019, and the construction will be completed by the end of June of this year. Most of the construction on the project has been completed so far. There's a few pieces remaining, largely focused around ADA ramps and accessibility. The bus lane enforcement started in November 2021. We don't have a whole lot of data since that has started, but so far the preliminary data shows that the bus travel times have gotten shorter, and that bus and vehicular speeds have both gone up since the start of the project. It's tough to know how much of an impact that is from COVID and from the bus lanes, but we plan to do a lot more analysis, working closely with Baltimore City DOT as the project concludes this summer, and as we continue to move forward with the project. Again, the plan is for MDOT-MTA to continue to be involved in working and making investments along North Avenue long after the North Avenue Rising project is completed. We know this is just one in a set of investments, but this has been a big set of investments from both MDOT-MTA and Baltimore City DOT, and we're actively working with the planning department and with DHCD to support development around the Penn North Metro Station specifically, as that is a major transit asset. I'm happy to take questions about the North Avenue Rising project or other general pieces.
Thank you, Patrick. Any conversations, comments, questions, discussion? All right, hearing none. Well, Patrick, I'll have a sidebar with you a little later. We have a stretch of campus where there's a stoplight and a crosswalk. For some reason, folks who think they're Mario Andretti doesn't stop for that stoplight all the time. A nice speed bump would be nice right there, but we can talk more about that in a broader sense, you and the mayor's office and all these good folks. But thank you very much. What questions, comments do you have for Patrick about anything? And I will tell you, as I come up and down North Avenue, the actual bus lane has made a significant difference. I've seen it, and the bus can move up and down without major distractions and interruptions and all of those things. So it has been running smoothly from what I can see. Any other discussions, questions? All right, hearing none. I want to thank everyone for their presentations today. The information, it was plentiful. It was very helpful. And so we're going to share this information. And again, you all will be a part of some ongoing discussions as we move forward and look at some of the strategies that were put on the table earlier today, but also what we're going to be laying out and our pathway forward. So I want to thank everybody. If there's nothing for the good of the order, I'm going to ask that we adjourn our public session and go into our closed session, where there are just two items on the agenda that I would like to share with the authority.